Hello YouTube and welcome back to another Hands Down DFS video. You've got Ryan and Scotty here and we're doing our Week 7 DraftKings main slate breakdown. Had a tough Week 6, not a great week, but I'm feeling confident about this Week 7, ready to get into it. Scotty, how are you doing? How are you feeling about this Week 7? And, how are you feeling that the NBA season is now among us?
Yeah, I am very excited. I wish we were able to keep up with the NBA season as much as we needed to. It's hard to do that kind of content every single day. We'll try to have some stuff out over on at HandsDownDFS on the Twitter side of things, but it is just so hard getting a video up. But man, I love basketball. I'm excited. Orlando Magic officially starts the season on Friday. People thought maybe Wednesday. Nope, that didn't happen. Don't know what you're talking about. Except for the fact that Mo Bamba looked good, but this is a football pod or YouTube. So, but no, excited about it. A lot of the chalk didn't hit last week, which could be good because we're trying to talk about some GPP plays. We'll kind of talk about a little bit today, kind of going back to some of that chalk that didn't hit just to see if you can get some leverage there, as people tend to kind of shy away from what didn't work the last week, even though could work this week. And so, yeah, excited about getting into Week 7. I think there's a lot of good matchups that I'm looking forward to exploiting.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of interesting matchups on the slate, and like you said last week, there was a lot of chalk that just didn't perform, and just like you mentioned, it's going to be interesting to see what spots we want to attack and run it back with, and where we are kind of scared of after that. So let's jump into it with QBs. Starting off with the top guys here: Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Rodgers, Lamar Jackson. Who do you like at the top of this QB slate this week?
Well, I know in your Stars and Scrubs video that you posted, which is great, and everybody should go watch it. We have some stars at the top of each list that why don't we just go, like, what's holding us from going Kyler Murray, Derrick Henry, and then Devontae Adams? Because I think all three of them are going to be unbelievable. Maybe it's because you only have 3,900 left.
Hey, the thing that's stopping us is that salary cap.
But man, each three of those guys are in fantastic spots. Maybe Kyler Murray isn't as good of a spot just because Arizona could get up early and then just kind of commit to running the ball the rest of the game. Mm-hmm. But man, I think each of the top three guys for each position, not counting tight end, is in a really strong spot to start off with, which isn't shocking. But typically it is rare to see really, really good matchups for some of the top name players too.
Yeah, agreed. And Kyler Murray is... I do want to talk about the Cardinals and Texans game because I think there are some spots I like in that game. But like you said, Kyler Murray might get up too big. They're a 17.5-point favorite right now, which is just crazy. 2 touchdowns and a field goal favorites.
And they might easily cover that.
Yeah, they'll probably cover that. Honestly, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. But that just kind of scares me off of Kyler Murray. So we'll get into some of the plays from that game. I mean, this week I did talk about Lamar Jackson being my favorite star. After that video, I still like Lamar Jackson a lot. Don't get me wrong, at 7,400, I think he's just a great price.
Coming off of a rough
kind
game.
Of like last week, where last week he was a great price. It was pretty chalky. I played him. 13.78 points wasn't great, but again, this price for his upside is way too low because he has arguably a higher upside than Kyler Murray and Patrick Mahomes, who lead this slate with his rushing ability. I mean, you saw the 46 points on Monday Night Football. So I really like him there, but I kind of, after that video, I did a little bit more research. Aaron Rodgers at 7,500, I kind of like just maybe a little bit more or about the same as Lamar Jackson.
They need to update his photo to have the long hair.
Honestly,
I don't even know who this guy is.
Yeah, this was taken 10 years ago. But we've attacked the Washington football team defense like this entire year since week one. Week one, we're like, hey, they might, they had a good defense last year. They might be good. And then after week one, we're like, hey, they actually aren't good this year. So let's start playing quarterbacks and wide receivers against them. So, I'm going to do the same here. And surprisingly, I was looking at ownership. He's only the 10th highest projected owned quarterback on this slate, which to me is kind of insane. At like, if he's going to come in at 5% owned, maybe even less, 4 to 5% owned, against a weak defense for 7,500. I mean, he doesn't get you the ceiling that Lamar Jackson or Mahomes might have, but he's fairly consistent. He'll definitely be scoring. He's obviously got Devontae Adams there. So I think we can see a 4 touchdown game from him, maybe get him up to 35 points and, provide some decent value at 7,500.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a really good point just in general there, too, talking about Aaron Rodgers coming in at less than 5 or around 5% owned. A lot of times we think of pivots synonymous as bad players who are at like a low price point. A lot of times there are some good players like an Aaron Rodgers at 7,500 who can be considered a pivot because the ownership is just going in different directions. So I definitely think when you're building your GPP lineups, be sure to check ownership, try to find it wherever you can, because you might be able to get a guy like Aaron Rodgers, as you were saying, who you're like, oh, Aaron Rodgers against Washington. Washington's bad defense. Like, this is a smash spot. Everybody's going to be having chalk on him. That's obviously not the case because if he's only coming in at 5% owned, I mean, that's a great spot, great ownership spot for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, exactly. And not to jump ahead of running backs, but I mean, I'll just give a little spoiler. Derrick Henry was also less than 10% owned, and obviously, that's probably because of his price at $9,200. But that's kind of like you were just saying. That's a spot where you don't consider Derrick Henry to be a pivot because he's the best player in the NFL right now. But when you're less than 10% owned, if you have 40% exposure to him and he has a big game like we're expecting him to, you're just getting great leverage. Just have to cough up at $9,200, but. That's jumping ahead of running backs. We'll stick with quarterbacks for now. Who else do you like kind of a little bit cheaper than these top 5 guys?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit cheaper than them. I definitely like the matchup that you see between the Raiders and the Eagles that I talked about in my sneaky stacks, more so on the Raiders side of the ball. I think a lot of people haven't been as high on Derek Carr as kind of the first couple games he came out and played strong, and then he had some 2 duds, and last week we saw a little bit of signs of life on Derek Carr and what he can be. And I mean, this Eagles defense, it shows as they're 7th against the opposing offense, or at least the quarterback. However, I mean, they have been able to be ran on a little bit, so maybe that's why. And I just don't think Las Vegas has the running game. Josh Jacobs did have a better game last week. Now that kind of the system and the plan with John Gruden being out has changed a little bit, but I mean, also you saw that benefited Carr because I mean you had the touchdown to Josh Jacobs that was through the air, and you're able to get a little bit more involvement there. So I do like Derek Carr in this week going up against that Philly defense, who their secondary isn't as strong as it needs to be, and it's a good spot where it could be a close game, a shootout between him and Jalen Hurts. I think a lot of the ownership will go towards Jalen Hurts just because of the rushing upside that Hurts has. But I mean, at a $900 discount, even though they're kind of close to each other, just like visually, that is still a big discount for somebody who I think could go toe to toe with Hurts.
Yeah, Derek Carr, second highest passing quarterback in the league. Trails just Patrick Mahomes for the most yards in the league. That's crazy. Just like we all expected. I mean, yeah, we all expected Derek Carr to be throwing the ball as well as he has. We all expected Sam Darnold to start the first 4 weeks with 5 touchdowns, be the leading rusher amongst quarterbacks. These are just kind of things we knew coming into 2021.
Hey, I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but if you go back to my futures, I smashed the over on Derek Carr passing yards, and I feel very good about that right now.
That's looking pretty. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I wrote down Jalen Hurts as a cash game play because I completely agree with you. I think this is a game where it doesn't really matter what kind of the game script is for Jalen Hurts because you've seen even when the Eagles don't put up points, 11 points against San Francisco, 21 against Dallas, 22 last week, 21 against Carolina. I mean, he's still getting 25 points, so he's a safe play.
Hasn't gotten less than 20 points in the game.
Right. And in a scenario like you mentioned where this game does shoot out, he'll obviously have a high ceiling, but then, Derek Carr will also have the same high ceiling for a $900 discount. So I don't mind either of those guys.
The only thing that scares me about Jalen Hurts, I will say, is that in the last game against Tampa Bay, when they ran the ball in the second half, they ran the ball once in the second half, and the Eagles got a standing ovation from their crowd because there's been a lot of Eagles faithful who have been pretty pissed off about Miles Sanders not getting the ball. He got the ball, he got a standing ovation, so it will be interesting to see if they try to commit to the run a little bit more with Sanders this week, but that's just something to look out, but I think he'll be a fine play either way.
Yeah, that's a great point. A couple of other guys I like super cheap down at 5,500 and 5,300. These are guys I talked about as my two darts, and I said Fields was more of a cash play and Tua was more of a GPP play, but it might actually be the opposite. Fields is coming in at just the 14th highest owned quarterback against that weak Tampa Bay secondary. See how improved they are with their new additions to the team. But again, 5,300, guy that has rushing upside against a weak secondary. He, like I just mentioned, 14th highest owned quarterback. Is worth the GPP play. Hopefully he can finally get it going. I mean, we've been waiting for it. He's been inching up there every game. He's gotten better. Started rough game against Cleveland, then 8.26 against Detroit, improved slightly to 8.84 against Vegas. Finally 14 last week. So, maybe he eclipses 20 this week. But then also Tua's actually coming in like close to 10% owned, a little bit higher than 10% owned, and is going against a, slightly better, I guess, Falcons secondary than Fields is against the Bucks. But again, it's just another position where I think it's a offense that throws the ball a lot. Miami's leading the league in throwing the ball, 69% of plays, and Atlanta doesn't have a great secondary. So if Tua does play, obviously he's questionable. I imagine he plays through it. He did last week with the same injury. So like Tua also in cash.
Yeah, I think both of those are great spots in the staking stacks. I got someone commenting on the on the Dolphins stack rather, and so definitely a spot there. I mean, I was talking more about the Matt Ryan side of things because
I like him too.
We were able to see Trevor Lawrence kind of move the ball on the Dolphins last week. I think a big thing, and do you know this as a Dolphins homer? I'm sure you probably have at least a little bit of a pulse of it. Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, what's their status for this game?
I know Xavier Howard practiced and was looking, at least from what I heard today, it looks like he was going to play. Byron Jones, I don't remember seeing anything on him, but I could just be misremembering. But I'm pretty sure Xavier Howard is going to play.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, if Xavier Howard plays, I think I still like Matt Ryan. I think when Byron Jones kind of gets into the fold, that's where we maybe, because I don't think Matt Ryan is going to be able to bank on Calvin Ridley just as Calvin Ridley's not been the player that we thought he is. And I mean, if Xavier Howard's just on Calvin Ridley, I don't think you're taking away that much from this Atlanta offense. And the real thing is when we start getting some guys. Byron Jones, I know, is a bigger cornerback, and maybe he can size up better with Pitts, and so that's maybe where I start to worry about getting some of the value out of Matt Ryan.
Got it. All right, let's move on over to running backs. I mean, that's a bunch of options if you want to pay up for quarterback, go mid-range, take some salary relief. So I think we covered that pretty good. Running backs, first question is just, I mean, you click on running back and you just wonder, do you play Derrick Henry at this price? Talked about how his ownership might be a little bit lower because of it, but Kansas City, I mean, I know we talked about how bad they are against the pass, but they're actually equally as bad against the rush. It's just teams are playing from behind, so are throwing a lot against them, so they don't seem as bad. But, I mean, they're also allowing, top 3 yards per carry allowed. So, Derrick Henry, are you playing him at this price?
Yes, but some, not all.
Right.
I'm not going to just be like, yep, Derrick Henry is, but I definitely think I'll probably get a good amount of Derrick Henry in my lineups just because, I mean, it's nice to be able to know that you're going to get 30 points out of a running back. Like, it's just like, that's just a nice little luxury to have. And
right.
What we've seen the Titans committed to, and I mean, Julio Jones is probably going to be out again. AJ Brown has this weird thing where his body is just like rejecting every single thing that he eats this week, and so like I don't know where he's at with that illness, like or even when he does go, like I don't know if he's going to be fully healthy. I mean, I don't know if you've ever had the stomach flu, but I mean, you don't feel like running or playing a football game after you're on the other side of that. I mean, obviously
I can guarantee you I've never done a 40-yard dash with the stomach flu.
Yeah. So I mean, and then the flip side is maybe it's a flu game, but you have this whole idea that maybe we're looking at another week where the Titans aren't going to have their top 2 wide receivers, and then what do you do? Just run the ball over and over again? You don't let Patrick Mahomes have the ball a lot. I mean, it's just the recipe for success is there for Derrick Henry this week.
Yep.
I mean, 9,200 is a whole bunch, but yeah. I definitely think that's, I don't know. I just don't love anybody else too much on this. I mean, there's one guy I really want to talk about, but I think he's going to be pretty chalky. But
I think this is the guy that I want to talk about also, who I think is everyone's favorite play on the slate, 6,600, Henderson.
Yes.
Yeah. I think think a lot of people like him, and for good reason. I'm pretty sure he's the highest projected own play on the slate. He's just
Should
got
be.
he's just got a smash matchup against the Lions. Uh, I mean, yeah, he's honestly, when I'm building my cash lineups, I'm just gonna put him in, and then I'll go from there because he's just gonna be my first play. And I know he will be chalky, but I want to at least meet the field at that like 30% range, because I just think there's no reason why he shouldn't get at least 25 points, which is, I'm pretty sure, what he got last week against a much worse team. Especially, they're like a 2-touchdown favorite. So, yeah, I just really like Henderson this week. He's just been a workhorse this year, even coming off that injury. A lot to like. Also like Sony Michel at 4,200. I think that's an interesting play as well. But Henderson, definitely play. Michel, maybe consider.
Maybe. I don't know. But no, Darrell Henderson. I mean, if you're not thinking about putting him or going to put him in your cash lineups, what are you even doing playing DFS at this point? Like, it's just, he's going to be a free square this week. Detroit's bad. I'm saying this, and he's going to get like 0 points. But no, I mean, Darrell Henderson is in a smash spot this week for sure.
And he's just so underrated. He's just a beast of a player. And last year that Rams team had 3 good running backs that they could interchange with. Malcolm Brown, Cam Akers, and Henderson, and they just neither of them got the clear number 1 touches until Akers kind of started pulling away at the end. But then this year, Henderson comes in as kind of the number 1 guy, and he's just been killing it. So really like seeing that out of him.
It would be interesting to see what this backfield looks like if Cam Akers was still healthy. Man.
Right. It would be interesting. Who else for running backs do you like in that mid-range? I feel like this is kind of a range that gets overlooked a lot in running backs. So at least for me, I'm always taking value based on injuries, especially with what we were dealing with last week, and then kind of paying up somewhere. But I feel like I kind of skip over this middle range a lot. Do you like anyone in this range?
Yeah, I mean, I really like Joe Mixon, but I think a lot of people do as well. I don't think this is necessarily a surprising play here. I mean, you have Patrick Queen, who's going to be banged up for the Ravens after the last game. I'm not sure 100% on his status, but I know he had to leave the previous game. And so that's kind of going to be the guy that they've been trying to keep for covering running backs out of the backfield. I mean, and Joe Mixon has a high upside, where last week he had 6 targets, and if he's able to take one to the house like he did last week on that long 40-yard touchdown, if he's able to replicate that, because Baltimore hasn't been able to do very well. And I think Eckler had about 45, 46 yards receiving last week. So if Mixon's able to get close to that again and do what he's been doing on the ground, I think he's in a really good spot. I mean, Chuba Hubbard, again, as long as McCaffrey's going to be out going up against this Giants team,
I think
they could get up early.
Back on IR, right? Yeah, McCaffrey's back on IR, so he's out 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know how I feel about Antonio Gibson. I mean, having a stress fracture in your shin is definitely something to worry about, and obviously it affected his play last week at 5.4, but Green Bay has shown that they're not very good against running backs this year, and so even if it's something where you have to go J.D. McKissick and go a little bit lower because Gibson's going to be out, that's something that I'm definitely interested in. Let me see where McKissick's price point is. Yeah, I mean, he's only at 5,000, and last week he had 19 points, so
10 targets.
Yeah, so if that's something that we're going after again, because I think Washington's going to be playing from behind, as we both like Aaron Rodgers and what this offense can do, J.D. McKissick is another good play as well.
Yeah, completely agree with that. A couple other guys I like in that mid-range. Darrell Williams, 5,800 for Kansas City. This game's going to be very high scoring. I think last time I checked, it had a 56.5 over-under. 2 high-scoring teams. I think Williams was on the field for 59 snaps last week, which was about 72% of the offensive snaps. But he either had a carry or was targeted on 25 of those 59, so 42% of them. So, which is great. Just rounding up, basically, half the time he's on the field, he's getting either targeted or a rush. And that was going against Washington, who has a solid rush defense still. You see his work on the ground was very limited at 3 yards per carry rather. But he also got work through the air. So kind of flip the script and against Tennessee, who, I mean the rush defense I guess is a little bit better than their pass defense, but I still think it's kind of you're getting a worse defense than Washington in a game that should be much closer. I think Williams could get a decent amount of work. And then talked about the 17.5-point favorites, the Arizona Cardinals. Both of those guys on that team I like, Edmonds and James Conner. Edmonds started off the season as the running back one, but it's kind of been Conner the last couple weeks. So he's at least gotten the touchdowns. He's gotten, whether the volume's been there, it clearly was the last week, 16 rushes to Edmonds 4, I think it was. So I think both of those guys probably more Conner than Edmonds. I think you consider, considering they'll be playing up by 2 touchdowns in this game.
Yeah, it's the worst when DK does this to us when they take like 2 like mediocre running backs who are on the same team. You don't really know whose backfield it is, and you put them at the same price, and it's like,
and then it's a coin flip.
It's legitimately just like DK's like, we don't know what to do with them, and you're not going to know what to do with them either. So pick.
Right. Any other running backs you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, I wish the Bears weren't playing Tampa Bay because, I mean, Herbert looked really good last week. And just now he's going up against Tampa Bay, so they're not going to run the ball at all. And so that's a frustrating spot. I think the last spot I wanted to talk on is Miles Sanders because I talked about the standing ovation that he got last week. There is just like I don't think there's anything in the numbers that say Miles Sanders is a good play this week, but like there's just like that feeling of like the city is been so mad about Miles Sanders, and Miles Sanders is a good player. Like it's not like he's like garbage. Like when he touches the ball, like he doesn't do anything with it. I mean, he can make things happen. He averaged 6 rushes or 6 yards a carry.
4.7 on the season has to be towards the top.
Yeah, that's good. That's not. You can do some RPO stuff with Jalen Hurts and him, and like the defense has to pick, and like you can get him open. Like there's ways to do it, and like there's ways to make this happen. The numbers haven't been there at all for him this week or this year, but maybe this is the week where Nick Sirianni is finally like, "Yep, okay, we're gonna do it. We're gonna give Miles Sanders the ball." And I don't know. I just again don't really have the numbers for it, but the standing ovation from the crowd when he got the ball, I feel like that has to mean something, right?
It's a gut play and a gutsy play. So, I mean, he'll definitely be low owned. Let's check where his ownership is falling because between 5 and 10%, kind of around the 12th highest owned running back. So, I mean, he'll be fairly low owned. Don't mind him as a GPP play, especially at the cheap price. I think he does at least enough where he's not going to kill your lineup at a minimum. So don't mind him.
And then finally, how about the most boring player in this slate?
Oh, he was my dart pick in my video because Mike Davis is a very boring play. He's consistent. He gets 12 rushes a game and he gets 13 fantasy points with those 12 rushes. Kind of no matter what you do with him. So, but against Miami, who I'm just going to say they've just got a piss poor defense. They've looked awful this year defensively. Yes, they have been dealing with some injuries, but I mean, if he's getting 13 rushes, I'm hoping even with that, he's getting 5 yards a carry and he can, maybe find an end zone once. Maybe they put him on the field instead of Cordarrelle Patterson and, he can get you 20 points. I think that's kind of his upper limit, 20, but I mean, I think he's an interesting GPP play. If you want to fade Patterson.
It's just hard when there's people who are like consistent but boring because they just get overlooked on so much. And maybe that's not what you want for GPP, but it could be something that you get for a cash.
Yeah, don't mind him for cash either. Let's hit up wide receivers. We talked about how the top guys are all just so enticing to play, and I never like paying up $9,000 for a wide receiver, but I might do it this week because I just love the spot, especially if you're stacking him with Aaron Rodgers, who's supposed to be low owned. But I mean, Devontae Adams is getting 38%, close to 40% of Aaron Rodgers' targets. I mean, that's just crazy high volume. I know Aaron Rodgers isn't going out there and throwing the ball 50 times, but still with 30 passes, that means Adams is getting like 12 targets. And against Washington's corners who just haven't been able to guard anyone, he's got a very favorable matchup against Kendall Fuller, who's just allowing 16 fantasy points to his opposing wide receivers. And, he obviously has not played someone like Devontae Adams, who 16 fantasy points is an off week for him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's tough because, I mean, looking at it, he is a little bit game script dependent. However, I do think this is going to be a positive game script for him. But if there is, like, the off chance that, like, Green Bay's defense actually shows up this week and stops the Washington football team, because the Washington football team, like, they're not great offensively. Like, I think there's, like, the first couple games they had, like, they scored a lot of points against the Giants. Oh, they scored a lot of points, like, against, like, these, like, lesser opponents. There is a reality where Devontae Adams is actually a bad play this week because the Packers are very content. When we saw only 5 targets for him last week against Chicago, they're very content with just running the ball out, feeding A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. That is going to be probably a little bit harder against this Washington football team front because I do still think that defensive line is solid. But that is just like the only thing that's like, maybe if you're kind of going back and forth between, am I going to throw Derrick Henry or am I going to throw Devontae Adams in my lineup? Maybe you go with Hill over that, or maybe you just throw in Henry, but then maybe also you throw Tyreek Hill in there instead, because I mean going up against the Titans is a smash spot as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of the question I have because with a 56.5 point over under, you definitely want to play at least one, maybe 2 players if you're stacking it 3 or 4 from this Kansas City Tennessee game. Kansas City Tennessee game. So Tyreek Hill should be a fine play, but I mean, a guy I kind of like is AJ. I mean, I know you talked about, I don't know what his illness is, but I think if you're just taking a ratio of ceiling to price, AJ Brown's probably the best at 6,300. We've talked about how bad Kansas City's DBs have been, and AJ Brown, even though he hasn't done it this year, we saw last year, I mean, he's got 35, 40 point upside if Tannehill can just keep feeding him the ball. I mean, he got 9 targets last week, which is a really good sign. 91 yards. Honestly, he should probably be getting more than that. I mean, I guess that's fairly average for 7 catches. But if he finds the end zone there, he's having a really good game, and he's only 6,300 this week. If he does play, I really like him. And then, like you said, if I'm not playing him, I feel like I have to play Tyreek Hill or Kelsey or Williams or Henry. I just want like at least 2 players from this game in all of my lineups.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And I wish we could trust one of these lower guys like Westbrook or Pringle or Rodgers, but I mean, you just can't. I mean, even Demarcus Robinson is somebody that I'm sure, thrown in our lineups many times, of just hoping like, oh, he's on the Chiefs, and it's just those kind of guys never pan out. I mean, maybe they'll get you, like you saw with Robinson, maybe they'll get you 13 points, but I mean, they're never going to be the big blowout. They're never going to like replace Tyreek Hill in the passing game.
That's why I kind of like McCole Hardman, because I think he's the clear Kansas City number 2 wide receiver, and he's not like DeMarcus Robinson. Well, he's getting one target, then like all of a sudden 7 and a touchdown. Like, he's consistent getting those wide receiver 2 targets, averaging like 7 a game. So if Tennessee keeps the score close, if Henry can punch it in a few times and Mahomes is throwing the ball 45, 50 times, I think Hardman can probably see 10 targets again like he did a couple weeks ago, and that becomes a really good play at 4,300. So he's probably my value play for this slate, because I agree, like playing Chester Rogers or Westbrook, I don't even want to pronounce the second.
I didn't even try saying it last time. I just went with Westbrook and moved on.
I like that. With Westbrook, Pringle, Rogers, I don't really want to try risking it with those guys. I'd rather just to play it safe, go Harmon, and that's still pretty good value at 4,300.
Yeah, for sure.
Another one of my favorite plays, because I talked about this Houston-Arizona game already, is Brandon Cooks at 6,000. I mean, clearly Houston's going to be playing down multiple scores the entire game, and Cooks has been really consistent as the number 1 wide receiver. 13 targets last week, got 14, 11 in week 2 and 3. So he's getting double-digit targets. I think he should see double-digit targets again, playing behind 17 points. He's going against the Cardinals' worst corner in Marco Wilson. I think at $6,000, this is very underpriced from him. I feel like he should be closer to like 6,600 with the matchup he has and the game script that should be very favorable to him and the rest of the Texans pass catchers. So really like Brandon Cooks, and then a couple $100 cheaper. Really like this mid range on this slate. But Sterling Shepard at 5,600, again, assuming he is going to play, but well, now it says questionable. So I'm pretty sure he is going to play, though. He was limited. It's really the other guys I'm worried about. I know Tony's doubtful. Galladay's questionable. Slayton also questionable, but I feel like he's more leaning towards out.
Yeah, Galladay, I got the report that he's probably not going to play too.
So yeah, I mean, when Shepard is healthy and plays the full game, he's averaging 21 DK points, which is 3.7 times this price, close to 4 times this price. And yes, he is going against a tough Carolina defense, but when Galladay's out and Tony's out and Slayton's out and Barkley's out, that leaves Sterling Shepard, and that's about it. So, like him here.
No, I completely agree with both of those guys. I think they were both solid plays. Cooks is someone who's definitely been underrated for some reason. I don't know why. He keeps putting up numbers. He had those 2 bad games, but, I mean, coming back. And then I really like your guy, Jalen Waddle, after the game last week. I mean, if people are going to be high on Tua this week as kind of a sneaky stack, I think there's nobody really in this wide receiver core who gets me fired up except for Jalen Waddle, who had the 13 targets last week, who had the 2 touchdowns, who, he's only had 70 yards on the 10 targets, but I mean, or the 10 receptions, but still, I mean, he had 29 points. If you're going to complain about 70 yards on 10 catches and 2 touchdowns, then, I mean, your life's pretty good. So,
but I
definitely like Jalen.
Look at the week 5 matchup though, and you mentioned the 70 yards on 10 catches. Sorry, not the I guess that would be week 3. Wow, time flies. 12 catches for 58 yards kind of scares me. Plus that now,
what is he just getting screens?
That's essentially it. It's screens. It's like 1 yard slants. I mean those are the plays, and they ask him to do it with his legs, which he is capable of. They love using him in the red zone. I mean, the thing that worries me about him this week is he did see that $700 price increase to 5,600, and Devontae Parker and Preston Williams. I think both of them are going to play, so that makes him. So he's still the number one. Well, I don't know. Parker might be the number one, but he's still a top target for Tua. But just now, that's 2 extra guys that Tua has outplayed with last year that he can rely on. So don't know if Waddle sees the same volume, and that's kind of why I'm scared of him this week.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Man, I wish Allen Robinson was better.
That's who the next guy I've written down is, Allen Robinson and Mooney. If you are playing the field stack because you want to take advantage of this Tampa Bay backfield, both Allen Robinson and Mooney are so. I mean, you're getting a quarterback at 5,300, his number 1 wide receiver at 5,100, and his number 2 wide receiver at 4,600 against a team who has given up like multiple 30-point games to number 1 wide receivers. So I know we talked about Robinson last week as being sneaky. I kind of think he's sneaky again this week. Same with Mooney. Am I stupid for that?
The whole Justin Fields thing, I mean, I'm an Ohio State fan, so, I mean, if anyone's going to defend him, it would be me. But, like, my whole thing with it is, like, if he has a great week and I miss out on it, I think I'm okay with that. Like, I'm like, okay, fine. Like, maybe I'll be the guy who buys high on him the week after he does good. That's where I'm going to probably land. I don't want to be the guy who keeps week in and week out saying, you know what, this is the Justin Fields week. And then he gets 8 points. And then it's like, oh, well, this is the week. And it's just hard because, man, like, this Bears offense is so bad. And like, yes, a lot of their game plan has shifted to trying to run the ball more. And I don't think they're going to be able to do that against Tampa Bay. And so, like, you're right. Everything makes sense statistically for this to be the week that Justin Fields actually starts to throw the ball a little bit more, that maybe Allen Robinson gets to have a little bit more volume. Same with Mooney, but man, I don't know. It's just I just don't know if Justin Fields mostly. I don't want to say if Justin Fields has it, but I just don't know if that offensive line has it. I mean, and it's been tough when you watch the games. I've actually watched a couple of the Bears games. It's rough because he'll roll out and he'll just have nowhere to throw the ball. There's no separation that's being created, and I know Tampa Bay is a little bit better defensively, but I mean, we thought Green Bay wasn't very good in the secondary. We thought that Detroit wasn't very good in the secondary. Like, there's matchups that we've seen before that we're like, okay, this is it. And I don't know, just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key takeaway from that is that dialing 911's number right now because you're watching Bears game, and that means that there's something wrong with you. So I don't know what went wrong for you to sit down and watch a Bears game on Sunday, but I mean, maybe you'll watch when Justin Fields goes off and I have him in my lineup. That'd be nice.
That would be nice, but I don't know. I think I'm going to be out this week, but go have some fun and let me know. We'll talk about it next week.
All right. Just want to finish off with probably my favorite play on the entire slate at $3,300 at wide receiver is Rashad Bateman. I was very high on him coming into this season, and I think a lot of people were as well. 3,400. I have the price written down wrong. Sorry, but yeah. So
It's okay.
Rashad Bateman, have him in many of my best ball leagues. That's what they're called. Have Bateman in like all of my best ball leagues. He looked great in week 6, his first NFL game. Tied first. Tied with Mark Andrews for first on the team in targets as a rookie. Coming off missing for the first 5 weeks. I mean, he doesn't have a great matchup against Cincinnati, but I just think at $3,400 for right now, it looks like a guy who's either going to be a number 1 or number 2 wide receiver. I don't see him taking away from Hollywood Brown, but still like a number 2 wide receiver who's seeing 6 to 8 targets a week. I just really like Bateman, and I hope his price stays at this level, even though I know it won't, because it will eventually climb up to probably 4,500 is where I think he lands.
Yeah. No, I can't agree with this more. I mean, I watched, before I flipped over to the Bears and Packers game, I was watching the Ravens and Chargers game because I thought that was actually going to be a good game. It wasn't. And I think it was a really weird game script where all the running backs got the touchdowns. Each one got a different one or a different touchdown. But Rashad Bateman, watching the game, passed the eye test where you're like, okay, this guy's legit. Like, it wasn't like I don't really know what the hype is, whatever. Like, he fought for balls. He was making plays after he caught it. Like, this, and again, he only had 29 yards, so it's not like he had a crazy game. But he definitely looked like if given the opportunity, he's going to be able to kind of mold into his role better. And I can't agree with this, where I think this is the cheapest that we're going to get him other than last week. Right. So, yeah, I definitely think this is a solid play.
All right, let's move on to tight ends. Finally, a position where we don't just slap the first guy in there, although I definitely think it's not unreasonable for you to play Kelsey, but he's not my favorite position. I really like Pitts against Miami at 5,900. He's had his first touchdown 2 weeks ago in London. He's getting consistent volume. We kind of talked about how Calvin Ridley isn't himself. I guess that's what you say. I don't know. He just hasn't had a big year this year when we were expecting him to, and Pitts has kind of been the beneficiary of that as of recent. So yeah, I like Pitts in this price. I think Waller's in a very interesting spot because we talked about Derek Carr already being the second leading passer in the league, yards wise, and Waller just hasn't had a great game since week 1. I mean, he's been getting the targets. He leads the Raiders on the targets. He's the best pass catcher on the Raiders, but he hasn't had that big game. So I think something needs to regress to its mean. Either Derek Carr's passing yards are going to kind of level off and he's not going to be throwing 350 yards a game, or Darren Waller's going to start getting a lot of yards and he's going to spike up. And I mean, Waller, for some reason, despite his talent, just never has any ownership in GPPs on him. I think it's because he is this high price at $6,700 and has yet, except for week 1, to kind of get a ceiling for anyone. So I think people are looking away from Waller, and I feel like eventually he's just going to have a big game.
No, yeah, I agree there for sure. And I think I like Pitts more than I like Waller, but I don't think that's a shocking play. I really wish Dallas Goedert would get off of the COVID-19 list.
I think they did take him off the list, but he didn't practice. Because I have him. I have him written down as like, if he plays, he's another one of my favorite plays with Ertz gone. So really like Dallas Goedert. I would just, if he's, I don't know, they took him off the COVID list, but he's still not practicing. There's something going on there. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, as long as Goddard's playing, I think he's a great play this week. I mean, you had Ricky Seals-Jones as well, who he was kind of one of the big chalk plays last week, and he actually paid off. I mean, he was at 3,000, and he got 16 points. That's a really solid game. I think he has a chance to do it again. He did have limited capacity, as you see there in practice, but I don't think that's anything that he's going to be missing the game. And then just a guy that you're always going to have on your radar is Robert Tonyan, just because, I mean, he's touchdown dependent, but, I mean, he does get those touchdowns sometimes. And so far this year, he's only gotten, one? So I think that's going to be coming down the road. I mean, in a shootout, potentially, with Washington, there's no reason why he couldn't. And then CJ Uzomah, who a couple of weeks we didn't even really know about, has been playing really good and has been getting the targets against Jacksonville, and then kind of teetering off, but he was able to get the red zone looks, which you love to see out of a tight end. Going up against, again, the Patrick Queen in the secondary of Baltimore, kind of beating not what it needs to be and being a little bit beat up. That definitely could be a spot there.
Yeah, I definitely like Uzomah more than Tonyan. I think that's a good play. He's the lowest I go, and then I think Ricky Seals-Jones, again, in this 3,000 range. Those are the two guys that I'm considering. I don't really like anyone below him.
Do you go Jack Stoll if no Goddard? 0 points?
I mean, you definitely can, because the Eagles, I think they're throwing 26% of passes. Hurts throwing 26% of passes to his two tight ends, Ertz and Goddard. Ertz obviously isn't on the team anymore. Goddard, if he doesn't play, he's not going to be, there playing. So Jack Stoll will step into that spot. Tight ends are on the field all the time in Philly, so think he'll, at the very minimum, at least gets like 2-3 targets, and at almost minimum price, if he catches all of them, he's probably paying off. So I think it's an opportunity if Goddard doesn't play, sure.
Okay, you want to move to defense and then create our lineup?
Yep, let's hit defense real quick. I just went through and just wrote down the teams I like, because I don't really put too much thought into defense. But Carolina versus the Giants, I think Carolina's proven to have a very good defense this year. And then we talked about how the Giants are basically still all injured. I actually think I don't normally like paying up. I think $3,500 is a very fair price and by fair I mean very attractive price for Carolina. Baltimore versus Cincinnati, although you do mention that they are banged up, so I might kind of stay away from that. Arizona versus Houston, just because Houston is bad, and I know Arizona doesn't have the best secondary, and I think Davis Mills has had a couple big games, so I think there's potential that blows up in your face, but I also think the Cardinals should just win easily, and they should be fine, and they're fairly cheap. And then lastly, I think the Jets versus New England has some merit. Don't like the Jets at all, but New England's been so bad offensively, and the Jets have yet to give up more than 27 points. I mean, averaging 4.4 is, they're not killing you. So I think if you're just taking a complete punt, that's probably where I'm going. Those are my 4 teams.
I agree, and I think one spot in the other side of the Jets in Patriots game is the Patriots. I mean, last time they played against Zach Wilson, they forced 4 interceptions. I believe. Let me see how many points they got. They got 19 points. So I definitely think it's a rematch game. I think Zach Wilson has grown a lot since then. But I mean, it's something we've already kind of seen this year that the Patriots do have the ability to really step up and give Zach Wilson a lot of headaches.
Yep. I like that play too. All right, okay. Let's build this lineup. Let's try to redeem ourselves. We've missed out on cashing the past couple weeks, so let's make sure we get a good lineup going this week. Who are we starting off with at quarterback?
I think we both like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think he's a really good GPP play, and if that's the intention of the lineup, okay, put him in.
Okay. Sweet. Okay, and then running backs. So are we doing? Okay, so this is GPP, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been more gearing it towards GPP. We've thrown in like Daniel Jones and Taylor Heineke, so I feel like we've been more GPP geared. We also do put it in the cash lineup just to kind of track how it does, but the intention of this lineup is to be a GPP lineup. So, yes.
So we're not allowed to play Henderson?
I mean, I I think we play Henderson. Everyone's going to be playing him, but if we're making one lineup, I guess something else to note is that we normally throw this into a single entry lineup, where you do get more chalk. Like it's okay to be more chalky in those single entry lineups. You can play it a little bit safer. Differentiate. You only need like one or two spots where you differentiate versus in the 300,000 entries you need a very unique lineup. So yeah, no, I think Henderson is fine to play in this.
Okay.
And it's just kind of where do we differentiate? Paying up for Henry might be a stretch, so we have to go down. Williams, yeah. I think
really liked Aaron Williams.
Yeah.
What was the ownership on Williams?
Let me run that real quick. He is. Where is he? He's looking at 5 to 10%. He's probably the 8th highest owned running back as of this Thursday night recording. So not too bad, not too high, not too low. Right, kind of right in the middle. We can fit him in. Wide receiver. Are we stacking Rodgers with Adams? Is that something we're doing?
Man,
I feel like if you play Rodgers, you have to.
There's also, you have the Lazard, you have the Cobb. But man,
I do not trust. I think we just go Adams. I feel like, especially if this is a single entry, those are points we can rely on. I kind of hope. And then,
do you want to mix that with Bateman?
Yeah, Bateman's great salary relief, so I'm definitely good with Bateman. Let's fill out a defense. Just kind of see what we're working with for the rest of this lineup. We've been just going so cheap. Do we go a little bit more expensive? Do you want to throw in the Patriots in there? Hope they have another 19-point game.
I think I'd rather either do the Cardinals or the Panthers. I think you sold me on both of those two teams, whatever one you like more.
I'll go with Cardinals just because they're a little bit cheaper. I feel like if we're gonna go 3,500 for the Panthers, we should go 3,400 for the Patriots. So let's go Cardinals there. Wide receiver 3 rather. 4,900 left. Cooks is a guy that I really like, and then Shepard also, with all those Giants likely not to play. Well, I guess we can't play Cooks. We're not going to make the same mistake we did last time. If we're playing the Cardinals defense, we shouldn't play Cooks. So Shepard, I think, is a good play. Can go there. And then we just need a low price tight end now that we're kind of dealing with some salary issues. So we had.
We can always bring it back with Ricky Seals-Jones.
Yeah, and I do like Ricky Seals-Jones. I think he's going to be fairly chalky again, but he did have that price increase, so that's going to scare some people off of him. So I think that is a good bring back spot if we were going to game stack this. Let's hit that. That leaves us with, 5,500, 5,400? Kind of see what we're dealing with there. Devonta Smith, Kirk. Don't like Kirk. Don't really like Myers. Don't like Gaskin. It's a kind of a weird spot to be in. It's a tough
spot.
Yeah. Is there anyone slightly above that we like a little bit more? We can maybe make some room for.
Yeah, Waddle. You got Connor.
Waddle's a guy that I think. Yeah, I know you like. Just having his receivers back scare me, but I think he will be safe. So if we do go Waddle, we can just punt defense, or we can maybe take some, instead of Shepard, go lower, but then we're left in the same spot. So I don't know if that, because he's the same price as Waddle, so it doesn't help too much.
If we go, yeah, you're right, we're in the same. Okay.
So why don't we stick with Shepard? Kind of get rid of the Cardinals defense, and let's just punt defense, and then see what we fit in there. So, do you like
Jets?
I think the Jets are the safest down there. Maybe, yeah. I think out of those teams, it's Jets, maybe Giants, but I don't trust the Giants defense. So, and then Chuba's not a bad play. I feel like he's been very well. Now we can go Brandon Cooks now that we don't have the Cardinals defense.
Sold.
There we go. I like that.
There we go.
Rodgers.
This one's cashing. I feel it. This one's good. This
I
one's
feel
really
like
good.
A Rodgers Adams stack you can't go wrong with. Henderson should be an easy 25 points there. Williams, in a very high scoring game, he should at least be getting at least 15 points. Bateman is just great salary relief if they pass the ball, more times than they did last game. He should be getting 10 points. Shepard has no input. Yeah, I think this is a good lineup. I'm feeling.
I think
good
this
about
is
one.
a million maker lineup. This is great. This is really good. Feel good about this one.
Yeah. Well, just in case, follow us at HandsDownDFS on Twitter, and we'll tweet out our full and complete lineup on Sunday morning, likely. Just with all
We
the
might make a
injuries
Dallas
and stuff.
Goedert switch.
Yeah, we'll see how the news rolls out, and we'll release our full lineup. So make sure you're following us there, and also check out the rest of the videos we did this week. The sneaky stacks that Scotty did came out on Wednesday. The stars and darts came out on Thursday, or maybe it was Tuesday and Wednesday. I don't quite remember, but those are out. Go check those out, and make sure you hit like and subscribe to just get the rest of our week, the rest of our NFL DFS content this season, and maybe some NBA sprinkled in there. Scotty, any closing remarks before we roll around in our $1 million that we're going to win?
Dude, I'm just excited. Maybe this is the last video we post because we're just going to start rolling around in $1 million. Or maybe we start posting more because we have $1 million. We can actually quit our day jobs. So one of the two things are going to happen for sure. And so, yeah, can't wait to see on the other side of this week. Maybe there's a video. Maybe there's not. We'll let you know.
Thank you guys for watching. Good luck in week 7, and catch you guys next time. Bye.